Welcome back, gentlefolk and rapscallions of all persuasions, to the Worldhopper Ball 2025 video. I probably had the most fun at this event that I did of anything else that I did the entire weekend because it was just so immersive. And what I mean by that is, obviously, yes, I understand it's taking place in a grand ballroom at a convention center, but the way that they did the decorations and the atmosphere was mwah. So let's get into it. They had everyone line up in 3 lines outside the main ballroom, and they moved people through in groups and kind of did a little introduction for everything that was going on. And then after that, you walked through these gates into a tunnel that was the journey to Scadrial through Shadesmar. And it was this just fairy lights and glowing mushrooms kind of setup. And then it opened up into the grand ballroom of Keep Venture with rose windows, stained glass, and a massive dance floor with allomantic symbols on it. And as you walked in, you got an envelope that was from the Inquisitors, and you had to make sure that you opened it. I was a soother, which is the misting that I would be in real life. Even though I myself am very high strung, I want everybody else around me to be calm so that I can feed off of the calm energy. And my boyfriend was a coin shot. At the back of the room, they had 2 Inquisitor stations, and when you went over there, you got metal vials and you signed in like kind of a guest book, but it was the misting register, which was an interesting flavor that they added to the experience, and it was something for you to walk over and do while you were waiting between the sections of the production, which I'll get to in just a minute. The show of the ball itself was set up to portray the love story of the first trilogy as though Kelsier were narrating it to Hoyd in the cognitive realm. And it had all of the appropriate moments where Hoyd was going, or going, ha, and reacting to some of the shocking things that were going on, like Shan Alariel being Ellen's fiancé, even though they have very little interaction with each other on page in the series, because that's not the story that's being told. And you have Vin and Ellen meeting each other on the balcony, you have them dancing, and that, I'll get there. But there was a section where it was going through like Sazed teaching Vin how to dance, and they had a bunch of couples that came out and demonstrated doing this, not really a waltz, but it was like one of those old-fashioned dances where you're dancing with a partner, but you're dancing around them and not necessarily like really close up against them. So I got to try and dance in my giant Vin gown, and that was fun because it was a third partner in the dance that was happening, and it made it a little bit difficult, but it was still a lot of fun going through the motions and learning everything from... It took maybe 10 or 15 minutes to teach us all of this, but again, it was a nice thing to like kind of break up the show that ended up going on for a total of about 2 hours. And there were opportunities throughout to get pictures with some of the cast. The actress who was playing Vin had to leave right before we got up to take the picture, but we still got a picture with the actor who played Sazed. So that was interesting. That was fun. I really liked the interactive element to everything, with learning the dance, with being part of the misting register and having that aspect of it going on. It was a really fun and immersive experience. Like, that whole be part of the story that Dragonsteel does really came through in this Worldhopper Ball. I didn't go to the one last year, so I have nothing to compare it to, but from the things that I heard, this one was much more successful than the one that was done last year, the inaugural one at Dragonsteel 2024. There was a whole section of the room that was set up like Ellen's study, where he goes with his friends. They had a bunch of books set up all along the wall. They had the planning board that Kelsier does for joining the rebellion, and everyone was signing their names on that. Because I had the Scadrial con game, one of my things that I had to do was translate the Steel alphabet on signs around the convention hall. So I just signed our names in the Steel alphabet on the sign-in thing because my brain had been doing that for too many hours at that point. There was a hiccup with the drink menu, which was probably the most annoying of any of the typos that happened across the weekend, because on the main menu and on what was online, it indicated that alcoholic beverages would be both of the drink tokens that you were given waiting in line, and a chilled juice would be one token, and then spiking that juice would be also one token. That turned out not to be the case, and I had to pay $6 on top of both drink tokens for getting a spiked version of the Breeze's Summer Spritz, I think it was called. It was the best sounding thing on the menu, but the only way to make it alcoholic was to add the spike to it. There were so many ways that this could have been communicated before people arrived there. They could have added a yellow post-it note token next to the spike on the menu. They could have pushed an update in the app. They could have put an announcement anywhere that indicated this before you get up to the bar and you have already ordered the drink and they are making it for you and you can no longer change your mind and then you have to pay an extra $6 for the beverage. I know I'm making a big deal over $6, and I understand that there is a relatively small administrative team that is organizing this massive event. It's not the end of the world that I had to pay $12 for 2 drinks. I said this in my general wrap-up video, but I'll say it here too in case you haven't seen that one. They came out at the beginning of the ball and they did some announcements of, we've got a good news, bad news, good news situation going on here. Good news, Brandon is here. Bad news, he's here with his family. Don't bother him. Good news, Matt Dinneman is also here. Bother him all you want. And I had just started the Dungeon Crawler Carl books maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the convention, and because I don't have Audible anymore, I am actually physically sitting down, making time to read them with my eyeballs, and I'm already on book 5 because they're addictive and I haven't been burnt out on progression fantasy and lit RPG. My friend recommended them to me and I was like, I just finished watching Solo Leveling. I'm going to give it a minute so that I don't exhaust myself on this genre. I'm glad I did because I love them. I saw so many people dressed as Carl and or couples cosplays with Carl and Donut, and it was great. And I got a picture with Matt Dinneman at the Worldhopper Ball, and he was like, "You look great, by the way." And I was like, yes, because I spent quite a bit of time making the costume that I wore, so it was really great to have that from random other human who also happens to write fantastic books. It was awesome. The production itself was absolutely great. There was a section, I don't remember if I got any footage or not, but one of the things that they did was Shanna Lariel was like, over the last year, I've had some ska try to be taught in the dance of their betters, so let's see how they did. And it proceeded to be tango, which, if you know anything about ballroom dance, you know that tango was like the low form of dance that was in like all of the commoner nightclubs in Argentina. And I thought that that was just an amazing real world influence that was brought in. And I'm sure that other people enjoyed that. I felt like an absolute nerd, which I am, but just an absolute nerd for noticing that and recognizing it and having fun with that. So whoever's idea that was, A+, because it enhanced my enjoyment of it so much. Speaking of Shanna Lariel, the attention to detail from the books was phenomenal, because the only times that she is described in her dresses, she's wearing gold and she's wearing lavender. And they had her coming down the stairs in a lavender dress, and I was like, somebody did their research. I was so happy about it. And yes, I recognize that these are like very, very small details, but it is that attention to detail that can make or break something, especially when you have a room full of people who are as knowledgeable about the Cosmere as many of the fans are. It was an absolutely perfect detail to include. Also on the topic of Shan, the iconic fight between Vin and Shan that takes place after the assassination attempt on Ellen's life. They did it as aerial acrobatics, and it was so excellent. I'll play a little bit of it here. I don't know how much we're allowed to post about what we like, it didn't say that you can't take videos and post them, but they maybe don't want the whole fight up online from someone who's not one of their official channels. So I'll just put in a little bit here as I'm talking about it. The choreography was insane, and seeing that done live and having that be the imagination of this fight, I can absolutely see Mistborn as a stage play. It would be an expensive stage play, but having seen this done with live actors was absolutely phenomenal. I'm so glad that I got the chance to go and see this. And then after the whole show concluded, they started playing some more modern dance music, and they had a dude up there dressed as an inquisitor, and his persona was DJ Iron Eyes. It was great. They played Golden to get everybody on the dance floor, and then they played Mr. Brightside, and Since You've Been Gone, and I was like, oh, yeah, millennials are the target audience for this music. Alrighty, okay, let's go. And then the last little fun detail that I took a picture of before we dipped out a little early and not get caught in the crush of people was they had a set of fake bones underneath one of the couches as if Akandra had left them there and slunk away. And I am a broken record, but the attention to detail of this event was so great. I had so much fun. I will definitely be trying to snag a ticket for the Worldhopper Ball next year, because if I have to predict what it's going to be next year, I'm going to predict Nalthis and the Court of the Gods, because they can do so much fun stuff with the colors and the lights and everything that you can do with the breath and Nalthis and the Court of the Gods. So that's my prediction for next year. I could be wrong. I was right about Scadrial this year. I could be wrong, but I think it's going to be Nalthis next, and then maybe Cell. I almost forgot to show you the cups. So these were the commemorative Worldhopper Ball cups for 2025. These were a much more reasonable size and a durability for packing in suitcases to take home, as opposed to, I'm sure if you're watching this, you probably watched content from last year, the goblets that were like the size of a ramen bowl and made out of glass. I don't know how people got that home. There's the rose window on the opposite side, and then this is what I was talking about, like all the symbols down here at the bottom are all of the basic elementic metals, and that's what I was looking at on the tokens, being like, these don't say anything, I don't know how to read these, and it's because they weren't trying to make a sentence from the little key, it was just the elementic metals. And then there's the Dragonsteel logo on the very bottom, and I'll read the fine print for you since you obviously can't from that far away. It is, I write these words in steel, for anything not set in metal cannot be trusted. So they comfortably hold 14 ounces. You can put a pint in here, but it is right to the rim. So would not recommend that. If at some point they have these for sale on the Dragonsteel store online, just be aware of that. I'm very happy that we got these included as part of our admission price and didn't have to buy them separately. They were available for sale at the Worldhopper Ball store, but it was really nice getting one each for the admission tickets. So that is the Worldhopper Ball video. I will be posting a video about the construction of the cosplays. That one is going to take quite a bit longer because I have to gather up all of the footage over the last 6 months and narrate over the top of it and add music to it. It's going to be a production. I hope it's worth waiting for. People seem to like the one that I did last year, but it will take me a bit of extra time. So in the meantime, please do all those delicious things that feed the almighty algorithm, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.